You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. I have a lot of really cool friends who do a lot of really cool things. I wanted to make it a goal to sit down with these friends and spend about 15 minutes or so getting to know them better and find out about their past, present, and their future. The result is this show. My name is Grant Baciocco, and this is 15 Minutes With. Liz Brown is a writer and a comedian, and she is today's guest on 15 Minutes With. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Grant.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We're going to talk about all the creative stuff you've done and are doing, but let's go back. Let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Well, I'm an Army brat, so I didn't really grow up anywhere. I was sort of a drifter. I'm still kind of a drifter. But up and down the East Coast, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Vermont, mostly.
Excellent. So all over the place.
All over the place.
And when was the first time you sort of got an inkling that you were creative?
That I was creative?
Yeah.
I think it was pretty young. Mm-hmm. I was writing some pretty slamming poetry in first grade. I mean, honestly, if you look back at the Northfield News from about 35 years ago, you're going to see some good stuff.
Wow, you were published.
I was published at age 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is all uphill from there.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of your poems?
I had 2 poems in the Northfield News. One was about Valentine's Day. I think I remember the whole poem. Yeah. Do you want to hear it?
I would love to hear it.
It's called Valentine's Day.
Yes.
This was first grade. A pretty little heart, colored pink and blue, flying in the sky, made just for me and you.
Oh,
yeah.
That was lovely.
That was good.
I can see why that was.
And then the other one was third grade, because I took a year off, sort of a writing sabbatical in second grade. And then that was about autumn in Vermont. And I don't remember the whole thing. It was a little bit longer, but I do remember there was a part. It was like, the leaves are rustling. The geese are flying south. It's time for apple pie. Open your mouth. That was in there. That was a hit.
That could be like a slogan for
Vermont,
for an apple pie company
or an apple pie company.
You know?
Yeah.
What inspired you to start writing? You just took to it right away?
I think it was just like the assignment in the class, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I'm good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you, you're writing those poems. Was poetry your main focus, or
Poetry,
did you write stories?
Then I started writing short stories, I think, in second or third grade, and I was really into Nancy Drew at the time,
Mm-hmm.
so I wrote sort of Nancy Drew knockoffs. There was one called The Mysterious Grasshopper. It was about a grasshopper that was mysterious. And then I wrote one called, I think it was The Mystery of the Black Pearls. I don't know what was going on there, but it was something about a jewelry heist, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then later on, in sixth grade, was the big one. I wrote a sort of a historical fiction about Pearl Harbor called The Day That Would Live in Infamy. It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense.
During this time, was anybody in your family creative?
So my sister is an artist. She's a brilliant artist, like a painter and printmaker, but she was more of like a visual artist. I was sort of the writer in the family. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And were your parents creative at all?
Not really. No, my dad's an Army colonel.
Yeah.
And my mom was a preschool teacher. Well, she was a stay-at-home mom for a while and then a preschool teacher. But yeah.
But she could help with the writing then, I guess, if...
She's incredibly shy and introverted, and she would just say, no, I couldn't write at all. Lizzie's got all the talent, she'd say.
But you're also a performer. I've
Yes.
seen you perform. You do comedy,
Yes.
and you do improv and stuff.
Yes.
Were you performing then, or was it mostly just writing as a young...
I always wanted to perform. I think I was always desperate for the spotlight. Yep. I think kindergarten I was doing like the school plays and stuff. Yeah. I always wanted to be in the show.
And then when in high school, did you do the theater productions there?
I did the theater productions, whatever ones they would let me in. And then in college, I was sort of one of those theater nerds that sort of... It was hard because I didn't get cast in a lot of stuff. I was kind of like the weirdo that they didn't know where to put because I'm kind of like tall and awkward. I don't know. I didn't really get any big roles until junior year. I was the star of Marvin's Room. I don't know if you remember Marvin's Room, this Diane Keaton movie. Yep, so I was the star of that. But I would always get like a non-speaking part. They'd be like As You Like It was the first one I was in, and it was like a 3-hour production, and I was like, wench. No lines. I had to go for 8 hours a day to the rehearsals. I would be like, townsperson, You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
the background.
Yeah.
Or once I got cast in like an improv murder mystery show where I was mute. So yeah, it was sort of a struggle.
Yeah.
Struggle to find my voice, so to speak. Yeah.
And what college did you go to?
I went to Boston College, and then I transferred the last couple of years. I went to Norwich University in Vermont. It was this super hippy-dippy program called New College. It was like they had just created it there. There were only like a handful of people in the program. It was sort of like a design your own major sort of thing, and you would go for like a couple of weeks to this amazing campus in Vermont, and then you would have to go like do internships like out in the world and stuff like that. And then I did a one-woman show for my senior thesis called Head in the Oven.
That you wrote completely
That I
yourself?
wrote completely myself because
Yeah.
I was like a psychology, theater arts double major. So I wrote Head in the Oven for that. Yeah.
Wow. So why? I'm going to skip a little bit. Why psychology? Why? What intrigued you about psychology?
You know, I had my own bouts with depression and anxiety, and then I think it was when I was like just after 21, I started going to just tons of therapy, which I'm thrilled to be back in today. And I was like, oh, I really like this. I really like exploring my own mind, I think, because I'm a narcissist. But also, I had some really helpful therapists, and I was like, oh, I think I want to do this with my life. I think I wanted to be a therapist. I actually went to school, and I got my master's in social work to be a therapist. And then by the end of my 2 years in graduate school, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. I'm out. Yeah.
So where did you go after that?
I went to UCLA for my master's, yeah.
Okay.
Which I'll be paying for the next 29 years.
And but after you decided like, okay, I'm not going to do social work or whatever it is. So then
I started writing. I started taking classes at the Groundlings with it was actually Heather Morgan. That was probably a friend of friends of the show, who got me started writing. I took her class. I saw how great all the writers in her class were, and I immediately dropped out and said, I was like, I'm sorry, I need to drop out. And she called me the next day and was like, what happened? And I was like, well, everyone's so good and I'm just terrible. So I decided to drop out. And she was like, this is my Heather Morgan impression, if you know. No! What are you talking about? You're great! We love it! You have to come back. You're not a social worker. You're a writer! Which is what I desperately wanted somebody to say. And then I was like, screw this. I'm going to be a writer. There's plenty of terrible writers out there making a living as writers. I'm going to try and do it too. And I wrote articles about anything and everything. I wrote hotel reviews. I wrote stories about the earthquake drill at my work. And then once I wrote a story, I am a fan of the Howard Stern show. And I wrote one story about how Artie Lang, the comedian, hadn't shown up for the work that day. And it went viral, and it got like 100,000 hits. And I was like, wow, I guess I should start writing some more Howard Stern stories. This is interesting. And then I found out there was this niche that nobody was covering. Even the Howard Stern Show website was not covering the Howard Stern Show. So I started being just an independent blogger, writing stories about the show. And after about a year of doing it, I quit my social work job and became a full-time Howard Stern Show blogger.
Wow.
For like 4 years. That was my job. It was great.
And that was independent.
Yeah.
How did you make money doing that?
Well, I still write. I still have the column, but I don't update it very often, for this website called examiner.com, which is, let's see, when did I start? It was like 8 or 9 years ago. And at the time, you could make a lot of money just on clicks. It was like a pay per click, like there would be like an ad in the corner of your column, and every time somebody went to the page, you'd get a portion of the money that went with the ad. It's like now, a few years later, they cut the pay way back, and I had to go and find more steady work. But it was amazing for a while. It was just, my job was sitting at home on my couch listening to the Howard Stern Show and just taking notes and deciding what the interesting stories of the day were. And I got to interview a lot of the smaller celebrities on the show, like the Whack Packers and stuff. It was really, really fun. Yeah.
And are you still a Howard Stern fan?
I'm still a huge Howard Stern fan, but he's cut back his schedule way back. He's only on 3 days a week, and he's on vacation a lot. But yeah, I do love Howard. I was just listening to him on Monday. Yeah.
And so that after that was done, what did
After
you
that
do?
was done, I got the job I have now. I'm the trending content editor at Hulu.com. Come TV with us, Hulu.com. Yes. So yeah, I get to pick all of the trending content on the main page. So that's fun. Yeah, it's watching TV and deciding what I think people will want to see and featuring it.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Yeah.
And you've also done stand-up. When did the stand-up start?
The stand-up started, I think, shortly after I started writing. I'm going to say like 2008 or so was the first time I did stand-up because some friends of mine who I met in a Groundlings class were doing a show. So I was terrified to do stand-up. That was definitely it's still, I think, stand-up is the scariest. Stand-up is the scariest because it's just you and the microphone. There's no backup. Like improv, if you really go blank, there's somebody else on stage to, help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But stand-up, you're on your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do love stand-up. Yeah.
And you were also, I had met you before in improv classes and stuff, but I know I closely worked with you last summer with the Henson Puppetry Workshop.
Greatest time of my life.
Yeah, what was that like?
It was bizarre because I saw there was a posting for the diversity workshop, and I was like, well, there's something I'm never going to get. So I threw my hat in the ring, preparing for complete and utter rejection, and then I got the audition. And then I was like, well, this is going to be embarrassing. And then I went in and there was Brian Henson to audition with. And I was like, oh, God, help me. And Kevin Clash is sitting in the room and Patrick Bristow, whom I love so much. And yeah, I just did it. I think I was just lucky that I was just like, oh, I'll never, ever get this. You know what I mean? So I didn't put too much pressure on. I just sort of looked at it as an exciting day to get to go beyond the gates at the Jim Henson Company and sort of like hang out there. And then I got in and I was like, what on earth? But it was, one of the hardest things I've ever done too. Just physically, it's so difficult. And to combine that with the improv is really, really hard too. But it was so much fun. Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah.
Well, and you did great. I mean, you worked super hard at it. And it was, still to this day, quoting one of your final pieces, your John Bobby.
Oh, John Bobby. Yeah.
John Bobby puppet piece, which was hilarious.
John Bobby puppet piece.
Yeah. And do you think you will continue doing puppet stuff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's opportunity, I guess really the hardest thing is finding opportunities to do it. And the most important thing is to create your own opportunities, because sitting in Hollywood and waiting for someone to give you a chance to do something is not usually the best way to go.
Right.
You sort of have to create your own work. But hopefully I'll get to do that forever.
Do you think now that you've learned about puppetry and what it is, like that has maybe opened another door in your head? It was like, oh, I could write for this now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I have a 4-month-old baby now, and he just watched Sesame Street for the first time, and I almost wanted to cry. I was like, I can't believe am associated with someone who's a part of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just the most incredible show.
Yeah.
And it's embedded in all of our minds. It's from like their earliest TV memory. It's just like this beautiful, beautiful show. It's hilarious. It's so smart. It's for adults and for kids. Yeah, I would love to write something for puppets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to ask you about when you're coming on is, and I may get the name of this project wrong, but you're doing sort of a rejection letter project.
Yes,
and
yes.
I'd love for you to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you haven't picked up on already from my 10 minutes of talking, I'm a little self-deprecating, and I think one of the hardest things for me is rejection. And when you're a writer, it's pretty much 99% rejection most of the time. So to try and get past my fear of the rejection, like I have a lot of things I've written and that I'm just afraid to show people because I think they'll get rejected. And so at some point after watching other people put their stuff out there, I got pissed and was like, why am I just sitting on all of this stuff? I mean, I might as well at least try to get rejected before I just, walk around and say, oh, I wrote a novel. What did you do with it? Nothing. Well, I'd rather say I wrote a novel. What did you do with it? I got it rejected from 100 publishers. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's best to, you got to try. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to amass 50 rejection letters this year from my my novel, for articles I'm pitching, for screenplays, for pilots and specs and stand-up shows, whatever. I'm trying to get 50 rejections, which is a lot harder than it sounds, because the worst part about trying to be in the creative world is sometimes people they don't even have the courtesy to reject you. Yeah. Like, they just ignore you. Like, it's hard to get a rejection letter even.
Right.
Like, you'll be like, here's a story I wrote about, an experience I had in 8th grade, and, you present it beautifully, and you wait and wait and wait, and, you just never hear anything. And then you follow up and say, hi, I just want to make sure you got that story I wrote. I was just wondering if you might be interested in it for your magazine. And, like, 90% of the time, you won't hear back anything.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to send it out to so many places that I at least get rejected 50 times. Now, we're halfway through the year. I think I have 10 rejection letters so far. So I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I am trying.
So you really got to step up your
I really got to step up my
seeking.
Rejection game.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
my novel has been the most rejected so far, which is a bummer because I love my novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you sent stuff out that's gotten accepted?
I did. I just got it. I had an article in Vice magazine recently, which was very exciting. I think that was my big publication of the year. Then I've got one other one that's on hold at a really big magazine that they said, we really want to use this, but we can't use it just yet. Were you willing to wait? But I don't want to jinx it by saying what it is. But it's a huge magazine.
Yeah.
That is giving me a maybe.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Well, that's.
Yeah.
Would you encourage other artists to do this? Do you think? It's
Oh my God! Yes, absolutely do it, because you feel better. Well, I feel better just knowing I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing feels worse than just sitting on your hands and saying, "Oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm not even putting myself out there." I feel better. It's better to fail than to do nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Well, let's talk as we wrap up here a little bit about your writing.
Okay.
And what is your process for writing? Like, do you write out longhand? Do you go on a computer?
I go on a computer. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I do. I type on my laptop. I like to sit on my porch and type. Now that I have my baby, it's pretty much I've got like a little weird bed desk situation where I sit with my laptop and him next to me on, it's called like a kick and play. It's like this sort of like little jungle gym with a piano at his feet where he's like sort of like kicking it and plays the piano. So I'm like trying to think of my brilliant dark comedy, and just in the background is just it's quite a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a set, like, oh, I write for 2 hours every day?
I try to write for 2. If I'm lucky, right now with the baby, I get 1.
Right.
And if I don't write for the day, just the anxiety just mounts. And then if I go 2 days without writing, I start to get hysterical. So, yeah, if I got to try and do at least an hour a day.
Yeah.
Hopefully 2. And you can get a lot done in 2 hours a day if you really focus. I set a timer, and I'm like, I'm just doing this. I'm not checking Facebook. Not checking my email for an hour. I'm not, wandering outside and staring into space. But yeah, if you can get 2 hours a day done, you can get a lot of writing done. Yeah.
Well, Liz, if people wanted to look you up online, where can they go?
My website, where you can read about the Rejection Project, is thelizbrownshow.com. Excuse me, and I'm also on Twitter at The Liz Brown Show.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Liz Brown is a writer and comedian, and you can check out her work on her website, thelizbrownshow.com. You can also follow her on Twitter, where her username is also The Liz Brown Show. Big thanks to Liz for being on the show today. 15 Minutes with On the GrantCast is a production of Saturday Morning Media and is made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly donation for as little as $1 a month. Huge thanks to Shay Stewart, Mer Lafferty, Jeff Peterson, Dale Gadania, Steven Staver, Jackie Klimo, Melissa Crawford, Chuck, Matthew Wayne Selznick, Dave Slusher of the Evil Genius Chronicles, Mike Coughlin, Dorothy Baciocco, John D., Kathy Crawford, Brian Greer, Carrie Whitney, Chuck Tomasi, Chris Foster, Stephen Ing, Clinton of ComedyForecast.com, Vicky DeVries, Mike Wabshall, Twitter user Butzinggear, a.k.a. Wildcat, and Eve Cunning, who is our latest Patreon patron. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your donation today. You can also tell a friend about the show or leave the show a review on iTunes. And if you have any feedback for the show, you can send it to me directly at grant@throwingtoasters.com. You can also get in touch via Twitter, where my username is ToasterBoy. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. The GrantCast is copyright 2016 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer. All rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.